السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. حياكم الله، أهلا وسهلا. كيف حالكم جميعا؟ حياكم الله. Double check I'm on the correct internet. Let me change the connection one moment. حياكم الله، كيف حالكم؟ Everyone's good إن شاء الله. Just trying to connect my camera again. طيب. Okay. That should be better. طيب، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. صلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. I got some issues with my adapter today. It keeps on disconnecting my camera and my mic. Bismillah. See if it works again. Bismillah. So a moment. Okay. Okay, so hope it works again. Let's give it a try. Sorry about that. How about my audio? Is it good? طيب, hope it continues working إن شاء الله. طيب, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. صلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So, بارك الله فيكم. To continue with where we left off last lesson. Today, inshallah, it's going to be a lot of practice today. I know that last time we explained last lesson we kind of gave an overview of everything, but today we're going to double down and focus a lot on what we call separating the core sentence from the details, okay, which is the most important thing. So today we're going to do a lot of different, we're going to practice with a lot of different sentences inshallah ta'ala, okay. طيب. So the first thing you need to do obviously is join us on WooClap, like always. Let me share the link. So here we are. Today we are on day 2, 4 levels of detail. Okay. WooClap link. Okay, find the link inside the in the chat. Bismillah. Okay. طيب. So before we start with the explanation, very quick recap of what we did last session. We focused, I mean, like I said, we talked about everything, the six different things we're going to cover. And we also introduced one specific dialogue, which was between a father and his son, showing you how every sentence in this dialogue had one core sentence. And that sentence, which was Al-Ibnu يغسل الثوب, we mentioned how that one sentence has gone through multiple transformations to give us this whole dialogue. Okay? And these transformations, the first step, the first thing about these transformations is that it gives a function to the sentence. And we mentioned that each sentence can have one of six functions. We've covered that in lesson 1 and lesson 2, and we'll cover that again today. So these transformations, they give a function to the sentence, and also they change some of the, or we can add detail to the sentence as well, such as this scene over here that makes it in the future tense, or agreement rules such that if this conversation was between a mother and her daughter, there will be other changes made to accommodate for that. Okay, and that was what the grammar test was about as well. Someone asked me, can you go over the grammar test questions? I'd rather not do that, mainly because there's still students who will probably be joining us or have not yet attempted the grammar test. So I'll give them opportunity to do that, inshallah. But rest assured that everything that you've done in that test will be covered, inshallah ta'ala, during this challenge. So last session, we specifically talked about the levels of detail, what we call levels of detail. The first two levels are, we start with the core. Okay, now the core, we can add to it. We can add to the core so that we give more meaning to the sentence, or the sentence is not vague anymore. Okay, so the core just gives you the subject and the predicate and not an optional object, right? Who is this sentence about? What did he or she do? Or what about him or her? Okay, that's the core. But then you want to add detail to it, of course, right? Which we're going to study today. That's a detailed sentence. But you need to be able to separate between the two. Okay, and then we said we can also have the detailed sentence or the core sentence, and we can substitute some of the nouns with pronouns, for example, especially if that person has previously been mentioned. Then instead of repeating the same thing, we just replace it with a pronoun. Or we said it might even reach a level whereby we actually completely omit, yes, and leave out parts of the core sentence because it's understood by way of context, especially if it's an answer to a question, for example. Okay, someone says to you, for example, where are you going? And then you answer by saying the mosque. Now, the mosque is not a sentence, but you've left out the actual verb because it was already part of the question. Okay. طيب. All right. So today, that was a quick recap. Okay. Just like last session, today we're gonna have a sample that we're gonna focus on, and we're gonna try and understand everything through this sample. Okay. This example that I'm gonna give you right now is kind of like an explanation or a if you like, a demonstration of what we mean by core sentence and what we mean by added detail, right? So here we have two sentences. The first one says رأيت في البيت لصا على شاشة الجوال. And the next one says رأيت لصا في البيت على شاشة الجوال. Now both sentences have the exact same words. It's just that the word order has been changed. The word order has been changed. And this change in word order has an effect on the meaning, okay? Which is what we're going to explore right now, okay? So I want you to go to WooClap and I want you to ask this, I want you to answer this question. This sentence on top, رأيت في البيت لصا على شاشة الجوال. And I'm going to share the WooClap screen. I'll share the whole window again. This over here, رأيت في البيت لصا على شاشة الجوال. Um, this statement here, there is a thief in the house. Does that statement ring true according to this sentence? Yes or no? Okay, so this statement or this sentence, رأيت في البيت لصا على شاشة الجوال, feel free to add a comment as well. Is it true that there's a thief in the house? Then you choose true. If it's not true, you say false. And try to explain why. Okay? Try to explain why. Don't just copy others. Don't look at that bar over here and think that that is correct. I want you to give me the answer and think about it carefully and tell me why. رأيت في البيت لصا على شاشة الجوال. Okay? All right, so before we come back to this question, I also want you to answer this question. I only have a few answers, by the way, so far, so I don't know what's wrong, but we'll come back to the previous question. Now, this is the next question. رأيت لصا في البيت على شاشة الجوال. How about this then? Is there a thief in the house? And there is a thief in the house. Is that true or false? There is a thief in the house according to this sentence. Is that true or false? رأيت لصا في البيت على شاشة الجوال. And give me an explanation why, if you can. Okay. رأيت لصا في البيت على شاشة الجوال. Is that true or is that false? There's a thief in the house. According to this sentence, is that true or false? If you want to know the meaning of these words, رأيت means I saw, listen is thief, في البيت in the house, على شاشة الجوال on the phone screen. If you want to know the meaning of the words isolated, which doesn't mean you actually understand the sentence. طيب. Okay, we have about 8 answers, I think, for this one. Okay, let's then. This one, okay, so most of you got it right. This one was false. Okay, and this one was true. So most of you got it right. So here someone said yes, because the thief is the object of the sentence. Well, he's the object in both sentences. He saw a thief in the house through the phone screen. And that's not an answer to the question. Don't tell me why. Listen equals مفعول به, this is certain. No, to be honest, nobody gave the right reasons. You got it right, but nobody gave the right reasons, which means that maybe it was a guess. Okay. Let's see if this person, if in this answer you gave the right reason. There is a possibility that there is one subjective, not objective. They saw it on the TV. Nobody gave the right reasons. Right. Let me explain then why this sentence does not tell us that there's a thief in the house, whereas this sentence does tell us that there's a thief in the house, and it's got nothing to do with listen being مفعول به, because listen is مفعول به in both sentences. In both instances, the core sentence is the same. Okay, what's the core sentence? Okay, let me ask you that actually. So what is the what is the core sentence? رأيت لصا في البيت على شاشة الجوال, or رأيت في البيت لصا على شاشة الجوال. That sentence we just saw, what is the core sentence? Okay, you can answer that inshallah while I continue explaining. Okay, or just look at my explanation. طيب, so we have these two sentences. Now let's look at the first one. The first one we have, and I'll show you the actual grammatical breakdown for both. So we're using these colors. Remember these colors because we're going to continue using them for everything we do so far. So the subject, the person that it's about, or the fa'il, or the mubtada, it's always going to be green. The khabar is going to be purple, and the maf'ulun bihi, or the object, is going to be blue. So I've got those three colors. Okay, we got those three colors. Now, as you can see here, ana, the words for the core sentence, I've underlined them. I've underlined the words for the core sentence. Okay, so we have here we have ana ra'aytu lissan. That's the core sentence. Ana ra'aytu lissan. I saw a thief. But as you know, these two sentences are actually very different, because one of them means you have to call the police straight away, and the other one means, or the other one does not mean that you have to call the police straight away. Now, this sentence over here, let's start with the first one. Here, the seeing, the verb happened at home. The seeing happened at home, and the thief is on the screen. How do we know that? We know that because this verb over here, which is the predicate, it is the part of the core sentence. This part that comes after it, fil bayt, it is a description or an adverb. It tells us about the verb. Where did the verb take place? Fil bayt. Okay. Now this fil bayt, it cannot be an adjective for listen. It can't be an adjective for listen. Why? Because in Arabic, the adjective always comes after the noun. So fil bayt cannot relate to listen. It's not possible that we say that the thief is in the house. No, the thief is not in the house. Okay? Rather, the thief is ala shashat al-jawal. He's on the screen. So there's no need to panic. It's basically you're at home, and on your phone screen you can see a thief. Maybe you're watching a YouTube video. صح? So you're looking, you're at home. The seeing is happening at home. That's where the verb is happening. And the thing you're seeing is a thief. Where is that thief? On your phone screen. Okay, how about this one over here? أنا رأيت لصا في البيت على شاشة الجوال. The أنا, I've added this, of course, because like we said, every verb comes with it a fa'il, which here the fa'il is the ta, of course, but we like to always make it into a nominal sentence or a jumla ismiya. So core sentence, we make a jumla ismiya. That's why we take the fa'il and we put it at the beginning. So أنا رأيت. Okay. We always start with a noun for our core sentences. Doesn't mean you have to do that in your Arabic speech. لا, رأيت لصا or رأيت في البيت is fine. Okay, but we start off from a nominal verb, jumla ismiya, and then we change it to a verbal sentence for reasons that I've mentioned previously, and I'll mention it in more detail in the future. أنا رأيت لصا في البيت على شاشة الجوال. Over here, this is different now. Now the لصا is في البيت. Why? Because here we have a jar majroor, okay, which serves as an adjective for the لصا. We say here jar majroor متعلق. It modifies or it's connected to the thief. It tells us where the thief is. Okay, so the thief is in the house. So I saw a thief in the house. Okay, now where did you see it? Where did you see that thief in your house? Is it because you're inside the home yourself? No. You're seeing, i.e. the verb, happened on the screen. على شاشة الجوال. Okay, واضح? Okay, so here we have لصا في البيت and رأيت على شاشة الجوال. Now, there's one question here. Now, this is the important part, which is the screen, i.e. the location or this prepositional phrase over here. You might say that, well, Ustad, it's closer to لصا than it is to رأيت. You got this whole phrase over here with a noun in between the verb and the actual where the verb happened. This is basically the most important point here, which is that there's a major difference between what we call adjectives, which are those things that describe nouns, and what we call adverbs, which are those things that describe verbs. The biggest difference is this: adverbs are flexible, and adjectives are not. So, in other words, adverbs, yes. So things about the verb, where the verb happened, when it happened, why someone did something, how the verb happened. Adverbs. They can be anywhere in the sentence. Okay, they're not bound to anything. They can even come before the verb itself. You can say, for example, يوم الخميس أذهب إلى الجامعة. On Thursday, I will go to the university. No problem. Or you can say أذهب إلى الجامعة يوم الخميس. Okay, I will go to the university on Thursday. It doesn't matter. Adverbs, you can put them anywhere. Okay. However, adjectives, no. Adjectives, they have to be in close proximity to the noun. So the noun and all those words that describe the noun, they're like one unit that walk and move together. They can't be separated. Okay. And that's why we know, grammatically speaking, that here, رأيت في البيت, this is an adverb. It can't be an adjective. It talks about the verb, not the noun. Because of the fact that this came before the noun, and adjectives in Arabic can't come before the noun. And also, we know that على شاشة الجوال can refer to the verb, and it doesn't have to refer to the noun, because there's no stipulation that adverbs come right after the verb. Okay. And also, if we speak common sense, the thief can't be at both places. The thief can't be at home and on the screen at the same time. Okay. At least not in this example over here, because the person is seeing the thief, and that verb is either happening at home, okay, as in he's seeing him while he's at home, or the thief is at home and he's seeing him on the screen. So even if you look at it common sense wise, but that may make sense in this instance. But if you want a general rule, the general rule is simple, which is that the adverbs can be anywhere. They're not restricted, and adjectives are. Now, that makes a major difference when it comes to figuring out if this is actually talking about the verb where it happened, or it's talking about the person where he is when the verb happened to him, for example. Okay, big difference. واضح? Okay. طيب. Is that clear? So what's the takeaway? What do we take away from this? Let's see if you guys understand or can figure it out for yourself before I explain. Okay, so what's the takeaway here? Okay, answer on Wukla. What's the takeaway here? So we talked about this sentence and we explained the differences. Okay, and based on that, we're gonna have today's lecture. But I wanna see if you can extract a takeaway for yourself before I go ahead and explain or tell you what the takeaway is, and then we start implementing it, inshallah. Okay, let me go back to Wukla. Adverbs can stand everywhere. Word order matters. The importance of the order you put the details in. Now, this is important. Word order matters. As a matter of fact, it's quite astonishing that this word or this basically is exactly what I wrote. I wrote the exact same thing. Word order matters as a takeaway of what I've just explained. Significance of sentence structure, absolutely. Knowing the position of the adverb and adjective will allow you to identify what is being modified or described. Yes, that's the main point. Because honestly, when it comes to the Quran, for example, and we're going to practice with some ayat from the Quran today, inshallah, if Allah wills. When it comes to the Quran, if you read in the books of tafsir, you find that the scholars, when they talk about certain, what they call adjuncts or adjectives or adverbs, they will say something like متعلق. They will say, for example, الجار المجرور متعلق بالفعل or متعلق بالاسم. So in the books of tafsir or books of Arab, generally speaking, they always tell you this, if you like, adjective or adverb, yes, which normally is like a phrase, prepositional phrase. What does it modify? What does it return back to? What is it talking about? What does it describe? They explain this because it makes a big difference. Just like we've seen right now with these two sentences, like we said, one of them means you have to pick up the phone and call the police right away. And the other one means nothing. It could be a child sitting at home watching a YouTube video, right? A big difference in meaning. Okay. Type. So the takeaway is, barakallah feekum, number one, word order matters. Like I said, is exactly what I said. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Ahsant, whoever gave me the answer, ahsant. Word order matters. Okay? It makes a big difference. Also, the importance of what is called the phrase structure grammar. And this is really the biggest point here that today's session is about. The importance of what we call phrase structure grammar, which, in other words, means look at a sentence in terms of phrases. Don't look at it as isolated words. Okay? Why? Because here, as you can see, the way we've color coded it earlier, look at these colors. We have all of these words are blue, and here all of these words are blue. Like you got 3 words that are blue. Here you got 3 words that are purple, right? Here you have a word that is purple and another 3 words that are purple, right? Now, what do I mean by look at it in terms of phrase? What I mean by that is you have what we call the head word, which are those words that we have as a core sentence. And then it could be that the head word is followed by another 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Allah knows how many words. All of those words, along with the head word, they are called one constituent. Okay, so that's why they also call this constituency grammar, which is when you're doing grammar, don't try to do grammar word for word. This word is this and that word is this. La. You should zoom out and look at it. Okay, what is the structure of this sentence? A sentence is going to have a core. That core is going to be 2 or 3 constituents for the most part. Mainly 2 constituents, subject and predicate, mubtada and khabar, fi'l and fa'il, or it might be 3 if we have an object. Okay, and there are very rare sentences that have multiple objects, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, so that's what we have basically. We got 2 or 3 constituents, 2 or 3 components of that sentence. Okay, so separate the sentence into its main components. Okay, so this رأيت في البيت, it's all about the verb, the event. Listen على شاشة الجوال is all about the object. Okay, who that verb happened to. That will make more sense, inshallah ta'ala, as we do more examples. But this is basically the biggest takeaway, which is what we call phrase structure grammar. Okay, and that's what we're going to practice. And that's the topic of today's session, separating the core from the details. Separating the core from the details. Now, the first question, what does the core consist of? Like I said, there is a lot of practice, a lot of questions that you need to answer. So you better prepare yourself. Question number 1, what does the core consist of? Okay, so before we say, hey, let's separate the core from the details, yeah, so that you get the main meaning of the sentence, what does that core consist of? What can it consist of? What are we looking for? Okay, now, I think I just gave you the answer a couple of minutes ago, but should be. أنا أرى للصن. Okay, you're talking about the previous sentence. I'm talking about generally speaking. Generally speaking. Now, so generally speaking, it consists of, someone here said subject and object. No, that's incomplete. Someone said verb, object, and noun. What kind of noun? Object is also a noun. You have to be more precise. Someone here said subject and predicate. Now, this is the main component of a sentence. As a matter of fact, that's what a sentence is all about. Subject and predicate. In other words, what are you talking about? What about that thing? Okay. And when we say subject and predicate, it includes mubtada and khabar or fi'l and fa'il. Either way. In Arabic, this is called musnad ilayhi and musnad. Musnad ilayhi and musnad. Musnad ilayhi is the subject, musnad is the predicate. That's in Arabic terms. Musnad ilayhi and musnad. Now, musnad ilayhi could be mubtada or fa'il. Both of them, they're the same. Mubtada or fa'il are the musnad ilayhi, i.e. the thing you're talking about. And then you have musnad. The musnad is either the fi'l or the khabar, whichever one it may be, depending on if the sentence is jumla fi'liya or ismiya. Okay? واضح? That's if you know, if you know this. If you don't, then don't worry about it. Okay? And then occasionally, depending on the verb, if the verb needs an object, it's a verb that affects someone or something, then we might also have an object as part of the core. So we have mubtada and khabar, because like we said, we're just dealing with nominal sentences. We're only dealing with jumla ismiya at the moment. Jumla fi'liya, I consider it to be a variation of jumla ismiya. Okay, so forget jumla fi'liya for now. We have mubtada and khabar. The khabar, the mubtada is always going to be a noun or a noun phrase or a noun phrase. In other words, it could be a noun followed by a few other nouns that specify it. So for example, if I say Abu Ibrahim Muhammad bin Abdul Wali, like we said last time, same example, mudarris, he's a teacher, right? So Abu Ibrahim Muhammad bin Abdul Wali sounds long, as-Somali, right? But all of those words talk about one person, which is myself. I'm talking to you right now. If you want to expand my name and say the whole name, Abu Ibrahim Muhammad bin Abdul Wali Somali, it still means the same thing. It's like one word, it's like one entity, it's like one thing. Okay? All of that, the first one, or all of it. Some scholars, they consider all of it. They say all of it's mubtada. Some they'll say no, just the first word and everything else follows on. Whichever one you want to call it, that's just technical meanings. But this and this whole thing all together, all these words together are one phrase. That's what I'm saying to you. Look at grammar in terms of phrases. Don't look at it in terms of words. If you look at it in terms of words, Abu Ibrahim Muhammad bin Abdul Wali, it's like Abu Ibrahim, okay. Abu mudaf, Ibrahim mudaf ilayh, okay. Muhammad, okay, is badal. Bin, okay, another badal. Abdul Wali, badal. And you'll be like, you're going to be confused, right? We'll do that later on, inshallah, the word for word analysis. But for now, let's look at it as, okay, Abu Ibrahim Muhammad Abdul Wali. Is it one entity? Yes. Now, I'm going to give you a tip, by the way. This is a very important tip. It's a very important test. They actually call it constituency test. They use that in linguistics, and there are many, many different tests, right? But one of them is called substitution, and that's why I taught you before substitution. Remember, when it comes to level of detail, ask yourself this question: can I replace all of these words with just one pronoun? If the answer is yes, then all of these words are one phrase. They're one thing. They're one entity. واضح? So Abu Ibrahim Muhammad bin Abdul Wali al-Somali, 5-6 words. Can I replace it with one pronoun? Yes, I can. هو. هو. He. هو مدرس. انتهينا. If I say Abu Ibrahim Muhammad Abdul al-Somali مدرس, or I say هو مدرس, same thing. Or I can also substitute it with هذا. هذا مدرس. Right? Or I can substitute it with a question word, من. من المدرس, who's the teacher? Okay, so look at it, all those words, look at it as a phrase. So we have mubtada, then we have khabar. Now the khabar, the predicate, which is basically what you're saying about the mubtada, it can be one of three things. It can either be an ism, a noun. So you might say mudarris, like I said, Muhammad mudarris, khalas. Or when I say it can be a noun, it doesn't mean it has to be one specific noun, i.e. it can be a noun phrase. Okay, so you can also say, for example, huwa mudarrisun mumtaz or mudarrisun kharban, whichever your opinion is, right? So this word mudarris, along with whatever adjectives you want to use together, you can use 20 adjectives if you like, right? It's still considered to be ism mufrad. It's like one noun phrase, and all of it is khabar. Okay, or you can just say the noun itself and the rest are sifa, they're tabi'. It doesn't matter. Either way, together it's khabar. Or you can have a fi'l. The khabar could also be a fi'l. So you might say, like we have earlier, أنا رأيت. Listen, أنا رأيت. I saw. رأيت. رأيت is the khabar. Okay? Or it could be a shibh jumla. Shibh jumla basically is, it could be a prepositional phrase. And we only have a shibh jumla, and shibh jumla starts with a harf. Shibh jumla starts with a harf. And we only have a shibh jumla if we don't have an ism or fi'l. um, that is marfu'. Ism that is marfu'. I'll talk about that later, the definitive answer, how to figure out what the khabar is. But if we don't have the ism as a khabar, we don't have a noun being used as a khabar to describe that person, or we're not describing him and we're not saying something about something he has done by using a fi'l, only then the possibility is that we're using a prepositional phrase to tell us where he is. So shibh jumla always talks about location. So you can say Muhammadun fil bayt. Muhammad is at home. Or you can say, for example, Al Kitabu ala tawila. The book is on the table. Or you can say, for example, um, Al Ikhtibaru Yawm al Ahad. The exam is on Sunday. Okay, so it could either be a time or place. That's what we call a prepositional phrase or a locative, as it tells us the place or the time. Okay, so we can use that as a khabar as well. So again, we can, when we have a mubtada, we can describe it by using a noun. Okay, we can describe it by using a noun, or we can describe it as in we can talk about it, predicated by using a noun, or we can use a fi'l to say what that person did, or we can use a shibh jumla to say where he or she is, or when it is. Okay, like the ikhtibar yawm al-ahad, for example. Okay, and there's more to it actually. There's a reason for that, but that would be too technical. We can't talk about that later. Okay, um, to tell you actually, to show you want to know, shibh jumla is not actually the khabar. It's just that the ism or the fi'l have been omitted. There's actually an ism there or a fi'l there that haven't been mentioned, so the shibh jumla takes its place. That's basically why. Okay. Otherwise, the khabar originally can only be an ism or a fi'l, nothing else. Okay. So you can have a mubtada, you could talk about it by using an ism, or you can talk about it by using a fi'l. Okay. But that's why I said you can only have shibh jumla if you don't have these two, because that means these two, one of these two is actually there, but it hasn't been mentioned. So, for example, as all of you know, in English, we have the verb is. So Muhammad is at home. So same thing in Arabic. Muhammadun ka'inun fil bayt. But the ka'inun got rid of, or istaqarra fil bayt. The verb, they got rid of it. They didn't mention it because it's obvious. So you end up saying Muhammadun fil bayt. So fil bayt, even though we say it's khabar, it's not really khabar, right? It's actually a modifier of the verb or the noun that has been omitted, right? But yeah, sorry if that was too detailed and that last bit has confused you, ignore it for now. Okay, I couldn't help it. So we have mubtada and khabar, or we can have, like we said, a mubtada and khabar, and optionally a maf'ulun bihi, especially if the khabar is a fi'l, like we said. If the khabar is a fi'l, then you can have a maf'ulun bihi. If that fi'l is transitive, it needs an object. Uh, and also, that could also be the case if the khabar is an ism, but that's the topic for another day. Okay, so that's why you might be asking yourself right now, how can there be a maf'ulun bihi, ustad? How can there be an object maf'ulun bihi if there's no fa'il? That's a good question actually. Answer on Wuklab. We have mubtada khabar maf'ulun bihi. Some of you might be saying to yourself, scratching your heads, ustad, how do we have a maf'ulun bihi if we have no fa'il? You mentioned mubtada, we don't have a fa'il. Huh? How would you answer that? Okay, so while you're answering that question, in which order do we place the words in a core sentence? We place them in the exact same order that I've just mentioned. We just start with the mubtada, then mention the khabar, and then mention maf'ulun bihi if there is a maf'ulun bihi. So first subject, predicate, and then object. Okay, that's how we place it in that order. And I say that because it's important. Okay, that's how you want to do it. Otherwise, you're going to be confused. Of course, in Arabic, there's flexible word order system. Sometimes the khabar might be mentioned before the mubtada, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, first, master the default. Okay, and then we can talk about exceptions to the rule. Okay, like some of you said, the doer can be hidden in the verb. Fa'il does not always need to be mentioned, like if you're speaking about yourself, but it's just that omitted. Mubtada is fa'il. Yeah, well, okay. So we don't say that mubtada is the fa'il, okay? But I mean, at least they don't say that in classical grammar. But that is kind of true. which is if we have the mubtada followed by a fi'l, then that fi'l is going to be the verb of whoever the mubtada was. But then in classical grammar, they'll probably say that the verb is hidden inside, the fa'il is hidden inside the verb or the likes, right? They'll say, for example, damir mustatir or whatever. But it doesn't matter. Point is this. If you have a khabar that is a fi'l, you have mubtada followed by a khabar that is a fi'l, right? Then the person who did that fi'l is the same person as the mubtada. It's not possible to have it other than that. Like, for example, you can't say, for example, Muhammadun, you talk about Muhammad, and then you say yudarris, teaches. And then you can't say Khalid, for example, and be like, oh, yudarrisu Khalid. You can't do that. Why? Because it's yudarrisu huwa, he teaches, and he goes back to Muhammad. Muhammad is the person who's teaching, all right? So, naam. So that's why I'm saying to you, regardless if you call it mubtada or you call it fa'il, let's just think about it as musnad ilayhi and musnad. We have those two things. We have musnad ilayhi and musnad, subject and predicate. That's why in English, subject, they use it for the verb as well. They say it's subject of the verb. Okay, I always used to be confused by that. I used to think to myself, why do they call it subject of the verb? Well, mainly they say that because in English, the fa'il always comes before the fi'l, which is not the case in Arabic. But it also makes sense because it doesn't matter. There can only be one subject in a sentence. You have a clause, a sentence, there can only be one subject. There can never be two subjects in one clause. And that's the biggest takeaway here. If you have a sentence, a clause, I'm not talking about complex clauses with embedded clause, whatever. I'm talking about a simple clause, there can only be one subject. Okay? Which means if you have a mubtada and then you have a fi'l, then that mubtada is in essence the fa'il. Okay, even if it's not called, technically not called fa'il, it's called mubtada. And that's the reason why they call it mubtada to start off with. Mubtada because it's the first word in the sentence. That's why it's called mubtada. It's the first word in the sentence. Mubtada means the word that you start with. Okay, so you have mubtada and then khabar and then maf'ulun bihi. Another question before we start practicing. And I promise you, if a lot of things you don't understand now, you'll understand once we practice, inshallah, because we're going to give feedback on all of the different questions according to what we've explained. Is the core sentence enough to understand the meaning? That's an important question. Okay, is the core sentence enough to understand the meaning of that sentence? Yes or no? Now, when we say added detail, do we mean by added detail as in, oh, it's supplemental? We can do without it. We just want to be, you know, more eloquent. Is that what he means? Okay, some of you said no. Some of you said yes. No, as the English say, devil's in the detail. Well, we want to avoid the devil, don't we? But no, we wouldn't need detailed sentences then. Yeah, okay, so no, core sentence is not enough to understand the meaning. Okay, it might be, okay, but not always. Sometimes the meaning could be in the detail. But why do we bother with core sentences there then? That's another question then. Okay, so um so why we bother with returning back to core sentence or extracting the core sentence? Why do we bother with that? Why am I really teaching you guys this skill of, okay, let's extract the core first? Why do I focus on it that much? Why do I give it so much importance if it's not always enough, or most of the time not most of the time not enough to completely understand the meaning? Someone said we won't understand detail if we can't understand the core. Naam, okay. To simplify for learning purposes, okay. Details won't make sense without the core. It's essential to understand everything else, to build upon its foundation, because sentence is built around the core sentence. Yeah, I think this is the main point here, right? Which is the details are built around the core. So where you place the detail, right? Or the details, if you like, they won't have a place, they won't have a house if you don't have the core. Okay, so you can consider, if you like, a core to be like the skeleton. and detail being the meat on the skeleton, right? Now, if there's no skeleton, you know, or imagine the core being like a place where you hang stuff, right? Okay, it's like, let's say the core is like the core of a house, like the pillars on which a house is built. Okay, now the pillars might not be enough to serve as accommodation, right? You can't live in a place that just has pillars and beams, right? If you don't have a roof and walls. Sah. But at the same time, you can't really have a house without pillars. Okay, so that's the point. Don't think that when I say to extract a core sentence, oh, this is the meaning. Well, sometimes it is, but not always. Okay. So without the details, the sentence can become too vague. It can become too vague. Okay. Um, and the examples that we can give are many, right? And we'll see the examples in a moment. But if you don't add the detail, maybe you don't even know who you're talking about. You don't know when it happened, where. I mean, the whole sentence can become vague. Or even the example we gave, رأيت لصا في البيت. Okay, where did you see the thief? Okay, if you just said رأيت لصا or أنا رأيت لصا, okay, it's a grammatically correct sentence. I give you that. But where did you see him? Is he in your house or my house? you know, or you saw him on TV. Where did you see him? Right? When did you see him as well? Right? And so on and so forth. So some of these details are very important. Also, transformations, which is things that we do to the core sentence, they determine the function of a sentence. So the whole function of a sentence, the whole purpose of a sentence is not there in the core itself. Okay? So first let me ask you, what were the 6 functions again? Remind us. Then we'll see how big a difference these transformations can make. In other words, we have a core sentence, رأيت لصا or أنا رأيت لصا. That's the core sentence. But we can apply transformations to it to change the function of the sentence. What are the functions again? Can you remind us? In total, there were 6. Verbalize, negation. Okay. Verbalize was not a function. Verbalize was a transformation. We can make a nominal sentence a verbal sentence. Subject, verb, object, adverb. No, no, no. These are not the functions. Okay, here we go. Question, answer, prohibition, affirmation, negation. Now, so we said in total we have 6. Okay, we have 6 in total. 3 categories. We have statements, we have questions, we have requests. Statements, which we said could be an affirmative statement, affirmation, which is the default. رأيت لسا في البيت is you telling something, you're affirming something. But you could also negate it. You could say ما رأيت لصا or ما رأيت لصا في البيت. I didn't see a thief in the house. Now, look how the meaning has completely not just changed, it's the exact opposite meaning. So that's why the core is not enough to understand the sentence. However, like we said, you can't really have a house without pillars. Okay? But that doesn't mean that just because you have the pillars now, the house, is it 4 bedrooms? Is it 2 bedrooms? Is it a warehouse or a whatever, how many stories? That's a different story. Okay? Then we have the questions. Questions, we said you could either be seeking confirmation with close-ended questions, yes or no, or you could be seeking information with the WH questions. Or it could be a request to do something like a command or not to do something, yani don'ts, where you tell someone not to do something. Okay, so these are the 6 functions of a sentence which are determined by the transformation that the sentence goes through. So it starts as an affirmative statement, and then we can either negate it, we can turn it into a question, we can turn it into a question whereby we seek more information, we can turn it into a command, such as غسل became اغسل, and so on and so forth. Okay. Why is it important to identify the core first? Because grammar, like we said, is mainly about phrases, not words. And each phrase has a head word which the sentence revolves around. So the sentence can be really long, but there are three words mainly, or two words, which are the head words. أنا رأيت, listen, for example. And then the sentence revolves around these three words. And then whatever you do to describe these three words gives the meaning. Okay, so once you extract the head word, you have a skeleton on which you can apply some detail. All right. Okay, so finally, before we go to practice, what are the details? What are the details? Now, these details are normally answers to the following questions. Yes, applied to the core sentence or applied to the words in the core sentence. So it could be a which, not a witch as in a witch. It could be like if the detail could be about which, yani which house, which person. Like for example, you might say اشتريت كتابا, I bought a book. All right. Now, which book? Right? Oh, كتاب القواعد. Or كتاب الله, I bought the book of Allah is in the Mus'haf. Or كتاب صحيح البخاري. Okay. Now, this extra detail tells us which book you've bought. Okay. It could be, the detail could be about where. Where did you buy it? من السوق. Okay. From the shops. Okay. When? يوم الخميس, Thursday, for example. Why? Okay. طلبا للعلم, to seek knowledge, for example. Right? The why. All this is detail. How did you buy it? Okay. نقدا, I bought it with cash. Okay. And then you have who. Now, when I say who, you might be thinking, I mean, who did it? Right? La, that's not detail. If you have a verb, the person who did it is not detailed. That's core. The fa'il is core. I'm not talking about who as in who did it. Neither do I mean who did it get done to, because that's the maf'ulun bihi. That's the object. That's core. That's not detail. Okay? What I mean by who is, who did you do it with? Like you might say, for example, سافرت إلى مكة, I traveled to Mecca مع أسرتي, with my family. Now, with my family, the person you traveled with, that's detail. It's mainly about you having traveled, but the person that went with you, that's a different story. That's extra detail. Okay? واضح? Now, so who with? And, but whom to, as in who did you do it to? Now, that's مفعول به. That's core. That's not detail. Then we also have what. Okay? What, again, I don't mean by that what, يعني, as in the object, as in if I say اشتريت كتابا, what did you buy? A book. لا, that's مفعول به. That's core. What we mean, like things like what with. Like for example, كتبت رسالة, I wrote a message. Now that's the core sentence. بالقلم, with my pen. Okay, now that's detail. Okay, that's not مفعول به. رسالة is مفعول به. كتبت رسالة, that's a complete core sentence. I wrote a message. Okay, what with? What did you write it with a pen? واضح? Not what to as in object wise. Like if you say, for example, اشتريت قلما, I bought a pen, right? So what did you buy, or what did you do the verb to? Now that's مفعول به. I'm not talking about that. So who with and what with. So if you want, we'll just write here who with and what with. Okay? Not who to or whom and the likes, because those are, like we said, core. So details are basically answers to these questions, what they call WH questions, right? They all start with WH apart from this one. It's only exception, but it's part of it. All right. Who? I mean how. Okay. Which, where, when, why, who, with, what, with, and how. Okay. طيب. Finally, we're gonna answer this question actually at the end when we're done. Are there any definitive signs? As in, Ustad, can you tell me what to look out for if I don't understand the sentence, or if you like, I'm struggling to extract the core? Yes. Can you give me some definitive signs that I can look out for? Yes. To determine where the khabar is. Okay. Or where the predicate is. I mean, the subject normally is easy. If we assume that the word is in the correct order, yes, we're going by default, then the mubtada is easy. It's the first word in the sentence if it's a noun. Okay. But the khabar can be a bit tricky. Where's the barrier between the mubtada and the khabar? Like, where does the noun phrase that constitutes the mubtada, where does it finish? Because imagine you have Muhammad, like we said, Abu Ibrahim Muhammad Abdulwali as-Somali mudarrisun. You got 6, 7 words. How do I know that mudarrisun is the khabar and not as-Somali or bin Abdul Wali or Muhammad? How do I know that these are not the khabar? How do I know you don't want to tell me that Abu Ibrahim is Muhammad or Abu Ibrahim is Muhammad or Abu Ibrahim Muhammad is bin Abdul Wali? How do I know what you're trying to say is that Abu Ibrahim Muhammad Abdul Wali al-Somali is the teacher? How do I know where to place the is? How do I know where the barrier is between the subject and the predicate? Are there definitive signs for that? The answer to that is yes, kind of there are. Yes, but we'll share that inshallah after we're done practicing. So here we have a list of sentences we're going to practice on. Probably won't get time to do all of them. And we're also going to maybe do an ayah from the Quran at the end. Completely random. I have no ayah in mind. I'm going to literally open the Mus'haf, or you guys can open the Mus'haf. Just give me an ayah in the Quran. We're going to try and implement our methodology to also show you that uh, this, inshallah, works. But that's on a condition, of course, which is that the verse is a simple sentence or a simple clause and not a complex one. In the Quran, is a lot of complex clauses. So uh, we'll try and find a simple statement or a clause in the ayat of the Quran. We'll try and implement this, inshallah. But first, let's start with this. So let's say أطوف حول الكعبة 7 أشواط. Let's start with this one. Okay. What I want you to do, very simply, is extract the core. How do you extract the core? Just copy and paste 3 words or 2 words, depending on what you think is the core, or type them out if you like, um, and put them in the correct order. Put them in the correct order. So we have أطوف حول الكعبة 7 أشواط. Bismillah. Okay. We have أطوف حول الكعبة. We have أطوف. أطوف حول الكعبة. The correct answer is not there yet. Sorry to say that. أطوف الكعبة شوط. No. So the correct answer is أطوف. Okay. And سبعة. And before that we have أنا. أنا. Now you're going to say to me, Ustad, أنا is already understood from أطوف. Yes, I know. But we said we want nominal sentences. We want what? Nominal. So we don't want verbal sentences that start with a verb. We want every sentence to start with a noun. Okay. And then you can choose to make a verbal sentence out of it if you like. So أطوف, and before أطوف we have أنا. Okay. Okay. أنا. This is actually a core sentence. أنا أطوف 7. Now you're going to say to me, why not حول الكعبة أستاذ? Well, حول الكعبة, حول is a locational adverb. That basically tells us where he's doing the tawaf. Okay. But the actual object of the sentence is سبعة. He done tawaf or 7 circumambulations. Okay, أطوف سبعة. And everything else is detail. Okay, so we said detail could be an answer to any of these questions, صح? Which, where, when, why, who, with, what, whatever, صح? So what is the detail here? Like we said, the detail are normally answers to the following questions. Okay, so let me write the questions for you and then you'll see how the details answer. So, أين طفت? Where did you do make tawaf? أين طفت? Okay, answer is حول الكعبة. أين طفت؟ حول الكعبة. Okay, سبعة too vague. Okay, أنا أطوف سبعة. سبعة is too vague. Okay, سبعة ماذا؟ سبعة إيش؟ which سبعة؟ أي سبعة؟ 7 pounds أشواط. Okay, سبعة أشواط. واضح؟ طيب. Let's try another one that maybe is easier. طيب, let's try this one. Okay, now let's try an easier one. Let me make it easy for you guys. طيب, okay, this one. قربت العطلة يا أبي. What's the core sentence here? اقتربت العطلة يا أبي. اقتربت العطلة. لا, put it in the correct order, please. I want جملة اسمية. I don't want فعلية. جملة اسمية. And then if you want, we can make a جملة فعلية out of that. So for example, let's go back to our previous sentence. We said أنا أطوف سبعة, صح? Or أنا أطوف سبعة أشواط حول الكعبة. Now, you can by all means get rid of the أنا, okay? And say أطوف سبعة, no problem. Okay? And make a جملة فعلية whereby أطوف and the فاعل is أنا that you don't need to mention. You could do that. But we said for purposes of streamlining everything, core sentence are only nominal sentences. Then we're going to learn how to make nominal, how to take a jumla ismiya, turn into fi'li. We're going to learn that later. But for now, let's work this way. اقرأ أنت أبي. There's not اقرأ, it's اقتربت. أنا اقتربت العطلة. Or اقتربت العطلة. Oh yeah, okay, so this sounds more difficult than I thought, huh? This is the correct answer. اقتربت العطلة. That's the correct answer. Okay? The holiday has come close. عطلة here is basically the فاعل. Okay, let's go back. Where is it? اقتربت العطلة. This one. اقتربت العطلة يا أبي. Okay, so here we have العطلة is the فاعل. Okay, عطلة here is the فاعل. That's the subject. So let's start with the subject. We say اقتربت. Start with the subject always. اقتربت. Oh, sorry, we start with the subject which is عطلة. العطلة. Okay, then what about العطلة? اقتربت. It's come closer. Okay, يا أبي, لا, that's a completely separate thing. It's munada, you're just specifying who you're talking to. Right? Specification of اقتربت. Okay? That's the person you're talking, is a specification of for the whole sentence, like who you're talking to, but it's not actually the core sentence. العطلة اقتربت is the core sentence. Okay? And when it comes to munada, by the way, when you have munada, ya abi, ya ummi, whatever, just consider them to be separate sentences altogether. طيب, okay. How about this one? أنا طالبة في جامعة أم القرى. Don't worry if you're struggling, you'll get the hang of it. Don't worry. Practice makes perfect. Trust me, it'll become easy soon. أنا طالبة في جامعة أم القرى. أنا طالبة في جامعة أم القرى. What is the core sentence here? Okay, أنا طالبة. Someone said أنا طالبة. Okay, good. This one is too easy. أنا طالبة. Yes, which is مبتدأ خبر. Okay, you see we're getting somewhere. أنا طالبة مبتدأ خبر. طيب, how about في جامعة أم القرى؟ في جامعة أم القرى. What does that mean? Okay, so في جامعة أم القرى is an answer to what? Hmm. It's an answer to أين. Okay, أين. Where are you a student? أين أنت طالبة. Okay, or أنت طالبة أين. Answer would be في جامعة أم القرى. في جامعة أم القرى. So in the university, أم القرى here is a specification of جامعة. أم القرى, the university of أم القرى. Okay, but all of this together, these three words together, they're like one thing. Okay, أم القرى university. In or at أم القرى university. It's one thing. They're all the prepositional object. They're all مجرور together, all of them. Right? في محل جر. Okay? يعني مجرور and this one as well. يعني all together يعني. طيب في جامعة أم القرى. Let's look for another one. Okay, let's do this one. انتقلت الشركة. Someone said أنا في جامعة. لا. You see? لا. لا. That's not the core sentence. The core sentence is not that she's at a university. Okay, if you say the core sentence is أنا في جامعة, and I ask you, is she a student? Yes, she is. واضح? So the main point is that she's a student. Where is she a student at? That's extra detail, right? Because at the jamia, you can have a professor at the jamia. You can have the janitor at the jamia. Okay? She's not saying I'm at the university and that's it. لا. She's telling you what she is actually, her occupation, which is she's a student. Where? At القرى. That's extra info. طيب, انتقلت الشركة إلى جدة. انتقلت الشركة إلى جدة. الشركة انتقلت. نعم. الشركة انتقلت. By the way, I don't know if you guys noticed, but when I say to you, take a sentence and make the core sentence a nominal sentence, I'm actually doing you guys, English speakers, a major favor. I'm doing you a major favor. Specifically English speakers. Why? Because when I say to you, take this sentence, انتقلت الشركة إلى جدة, and return it to its core sentence, which is الشركة انتقلت. Now you have basically changed the sentence to be in accordance with the way you're used to thinking, which is subject, predicate. Like in English, that specific word order. The company has moved, right? Otherwise, and this is why sometimes people they struggle with Arabic, especially English speakers. They look at this sentence, they're like, it moved the company, right? That's how some people they think. Okay, because they're used to translating things word for word. They're used to having a specific word order in Arabic. So some translations, some books of translations, even when they put intaqalat, they write it moved because the verb, like I said, is what embedded within this, the fa'il, and then they say ash-sharika. Or the really good ones, they will do something like they'll read the whole sentence first, see if they can find a fa'il, then they'll bring it forward, and then they'll say the company has moved. But like I said, if you actually develop a way of thinking whereby you're thinking subject first, jumla ismiya first, jumla fi'liya is just an adaptation or a transformation or a specific use case. Yes, but actually the specific way is jumla ismiya. If you do that, then believe me, understanding Arabic is going to be so much easier, especially once you start coming across complex sentences. Okay, so right now we're trying to standardize everything so that when we go to complex sentences, yes, you have a specific methodology that you can follow without getting confused. What if we level oneers don't know these words? We didn't even had them in the vocab challenge. Ah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, that's when I said to you, are there definitive signs? This is to help you if you don't even know the words. Okay, so let's answer that question now. Maybe now the time is right. The answer is yes, there are definitive signs. But in order to know what the subject is, what the predicate is, even if you don't understand the exact meanings of the words yet, um, which still is important. If you understand, let's say, out of a sentence there is 7 words, you understand 6 words, believe me, the seventh word would make sense. But on one condition being that you got the structure of the sentence correct. Then your brain can figure out what the seventh word means. Okay? And that's how we learn. Our brain is just constantly filling in the blanks. But you have to condition being that you know the difference between nouns and verbs. That's the biggest condition. You have to know the 3 parts of Arabic speech. Okay, because everything follows on from these 3 parts, which are nouns, verbs, and particles. Asma, fa'al, and huruf. Okay, you have to know the difference between these things. Why? Okay, number one, because a subject can only be a verb can't be a subject of a sentence. Okay, the subject can only be a noun. A harf can't be a subject. So mubtada is always an ism. Always an ism, always. There's no exceptions to that rule. A verb can never be a subject. So that means if the sentence starts with a verb, you know that that sentence doesn't have a mubtada because it started with a verb. So it's not even a jumla ismiya. It's a jumla fi'liya. It's a verbal sentence that has its own rules. Okay? That's one thing. So yes, there are definitive signs. Number one, like I said, if it's the subject is gonna be a noun. Okay. Now, if it starts with a noun, the sentence, alhamdulillah. If it doesn't start with a noun, then it could either start with a verb, which makes it a verbal sentence, which means you have the verb and the fa'il, and that's your core. So you have the verb, whatever the verb is, and whoever did that verb, which again we said could either be implicit or explicit. Either it is explicitly mentioned, like we said, intaqalat sharikatu, that you know that it's the sharika, or maybe hasn't been mentioned, it just says intaqalat or akalat or dhahabat, but you know that it means that there's a pronoun there telling you who it's talking about and referring back to a previous noun that you should know who that is. Okay? As if it's a verb. So if it's a verb, alhamdulillah, it's easy. Jumla fi'liya are much easier than jumla ismiya. Jumla fi'liya is pretty straightforward. Every verb comes with it, it comes, the fa'il comes with it, either right after or it's embedded within the verb. Jumla fi'liya is very easy. Jumla ismiya is a bit challenging. And what's challenging about jumla ismiya, which we're dealing now, is not the subject, it's the predicate. This predicate that could be, like we said, it could be what? It could be a noun phrase, right? Or it could be a verb. You call it verb phrase if you like as well, because you're fi'l and fa'il. Or it could be a prepositional phrase or an adverbial phrase that specifically talks about location or time. Okay, as in where or what someone is or something is, right? So we've got these three. We got these three. It could be one of these three. It could be one of these, either a noun phrase, as in a noun and whatever comes with it, in terms of like adjectives, or it could be a verb and whatever comes with it in terms of adverbs, or it could be maybe a prepositional phrase. Now, it's all about how do I know which one it is. Now, this is the definitive answer to that. If it's a noun, if you have the subject, yes, then the noun, the khabar is going to be the first, okay, indefinite marfu' noun you find. Okay, let me explain that. Indefinite as in it has a tanween or it doesn't have alif lam, basically um, is not definite. because the subject is always definite. So this basically the difference between mubtada and khabar. Difference is definite and indefinite. That's the difference. So the subject's always definite, right? You're talking about something specific, right? If the subject is going to be at the beginning of a sentence, always definite. And then the khabar is going to be indefinite. Now, there are exceptions to that rule, of course, but we'll leave that for later. Okay? So, for example, give me a sentence. Let's say, الرجل الطويل, yes, the tall man, جالس, he is sitting, is sitting. Okay, how do I know جالس is the khabar and not طويل? How do I know I'm saying the tall man and not the man is tall? Because we said there is, and we're going to talk about this in more detail later, inshallah, what we call the is barrier. You put it in between what? The definiteness, where the definiteness ends and the indefinite starts, that's where the khabar starts. Okay. Now, if you find a noun, and that noun, by the way, needs to be marfu'. Marfu', we mean by that it needs to have a dhamma or anything that takes its place. If, for example, the noun that you see is not actually marfu', then okay, it's not necessarily the khabar, because the khabar has to be marfu'. Okay, so it could be that, like we said, it could be something else, right? So mubtada, and then the indefinite noun that you find that is marfu', that is going to be the khabar. If you don't find this, yes, then it's definitely going to be followed by a verb, which means the verb is the khabar. That's the first verb you can find for the sentence is over, is going to be the khabar. First verb you can find. So if the verb comes before the noun, then you know that it's the khabar. But if a noun comes before the verb, then you know the noun is the khabar, as long as that noun is marfu'. Okay, and I say that because if you have, for example, let's say Muhammadun, يدرس. Sorry, I'm very monotone. But I don't have the time or the effort to think and be creative, right? Muhammad يدرس, let's say جالسا, yes. Muhammad is teaching sitting down, right? So here you have يدرس, you know that this is the khabar. Okay, and then جالسا, even though it's a noun, it is mansoob, so it is not the khabar. The khabar has been mentioned here. Okay, so Muhammad يدرس جالسا. Muhammadun, what if we say um, محمد في البيت يدرس. Okay. Now, are we going to say that في البيت is the khabar? No, because في البيت is not مرفوع. It doesn't have dhamma. It's got kasra. So what do we have? We got يدرس. So يدرس is the khabar. So again, the khabar is going to be the first marfu' noun that you find that is indefinite, or it's going to be the first verb that you find. That's it. If you don't find both of them, then you're probably going to have a prepositional phrase such as محمد في البيت. Okay, خلاص. There's going to be no noun, no verb. Then this is going to be the khabar. Muhammad's at home. These are definite signs that you can follow. Now, of course, it might still be a little bit difficult. Maybe it doesn't really make 100% sense. However, this does ring true. Yes. If you're confused, you can follow these steps, right? So prepositional phrase is only prepositional phrase, uh, only if no noun or verb, or let's say if no marfu' noun, to be more precise, no marfu' noun, no noun that has dhamma or verb. Okay, coming before the next sentence starts. Yes, so which means you're going to have a prepositional phrase, which you'll see anyway. And the reason I say this is because it could be that you have a prepositional phrase, but that prepositional phrase is just uh, a modifier of the verb that comes after it. That's like we said, Muhammadun fil bayt yudarris. Here, we're not going to say that this is the khabar. We say yudarris is the khabar. Where does he teach? At home. واضح? So again, noun, phrase, so it's either a khabar that is ism, mufrad, or it is جملة فعلية, is a verbal sentence or a verbal phrase, or it's going to be a prepositional phrase جار مجرور or ظرف. Okay, متعلق. واضح؟ لا متعلق, sorry, جار مجرور شبه جملة. Okay, or ظرف شبه جملة. Those two things. Okay, let's go back and do some. Let's actually do some from the Quran now. Let's take a verse from the Quran. Okay, randomly going to open a Mus'haf page and see the first verse that we find. MashaAllah. ended up with Surah Yusuf. I'm sure you can find a good verb, a good sentence in Surah Yusuf. Okay, so Allah Ta'ala says, let's see what we can find. We have, again, I'm just going to quickly scan through it to avoid any complex sentences. Um, okay, let me alaikum. Seems like I lost connection. I hope I didn't lose connection a while ago. My adapter is messing up again. Did I lose it recently or a while ago? Trying to reconnect. 1 second. Okay, alhamdulillah, that's good to hear. Okay, just trying to reconnect now. I used to have a better adapter, but I lost it. I'm start. 1 second. Okay, there we go. Bismillah. Okay, good to be back. Okay, let's go back. Let's see I said I randomly opened the Mus'haf on Surah Yusuf, so I'm just going to copy it from here. Let's see which ayat we can find that we can apply to what we've just learned, inshallah. Okay, here we have نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص. Allah says. Okay, so نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص. What's the core sentence behind that? نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص. If you want the meaning of the word for word meaning, لا بأس. There you go. Okay, let's see. We relate to you the best of narrations. Okay, we narrate to you the best of narrations. نحن نقص القصص. نحن نقص. نحن نقص أحسن. Yes, the correct answer is نحن نقص أحسن. Okay, we narrate to you the best. Okay, all right. The best of what? The best of narrations or the best of stories. واضح? So القصص is مضاف إليه, telling us the best of what? All right. So the core is not نحن نقص القصص, that we narrate to you stories. لا. The point is Allah narrates the best of stories. So ahsan is a more important keyword here than qasas. Qasas is a specification of which ahsan or what the best is. But Allah, what He narrates to us is the best of stories. Not to us, what He narrates to the Prophet, alayka, to you. So that is a modifier of the verb, naqussu. Okay, naqussu alayka. We narrate to you. طيب. Okay. نحن نقص أحسن القصص. So again, we said these are answers to questions, صح? So the answer that we got قصص is أحسن إيش or أحسن أي. أحسن القصص يعني the best of what. نحن نقص عليك. نقص عليك. Okay, so the narration is to who? Okay, which is عليك يعني على محمد. Okay, let's see if we can find another one. إذ قال يوسف لأبيه يا أبت إني رأيت أحد عشر كوكبا. Okay, كيف رأيت أحد عشر كوكبا. رأيت أحد عشر كوكبا يعني it's easy. أنا رأيت أحد عشر كوكبا. Okay, no problem. قال يوسف لأبيه يعني يوسف قال لأبيه. Okay, 1 minute. Let's find something else a bit more complicated. Okay, here Allah says فيكيد لك كيدا. Okay, how about this? لا تقصص رؤياك على إخوتك. Okay, how about this? لا تقصص رؤياك على إخوتك. لا تقصص رؤياك على إخوتك. What's the code here? قال يا بني, he said, oh my son, لا, don't relate your vision to your brothers. What's the core? Once we have the core, we can figure out the details. لا تقصص رؤياك. أنت لا تقصص. أنت لا تقصص رؤياك. Okay. لا أنت تقصص رؤياك. Okay. طيب. أنت لا تقصص. Okay. Let's do this. So here we have لا تقصص رؤياك على إخوتك. Now, one mistake that all of you made is that you included لا as part of the core sentence. No. لا is a transformation. Okay, so the core sentence is always the default. Then we add the transformations, which now gives us the meaning of the statement. So again, I repeat, the core sentence does not necessarily relate the correct meaning, but is what the meaning is built on. The core sentence for this is first taqsus. Who narrates? Who? Men. That's the most important thing that most we haven't mentioned. Alhamdulillah, here this person mentioned it, anta. Okay, actually a lot of you did mention it actually. Okay, anta. Let's start with anta. That's the first important thing. Anta, you. Which is Yusuf, by the way. You can say anta, which is a substitute for Yusuf. If you want, you can say Yusuf. Okay, let's say Yusuf. Okay, the real core is Yusuf, not anta. Anta is a substitute for Yusuf. Yusuf يقصص رؤيا. رؤيا. Okay? That's the core. Okay, that's what? The core. Yusuf يقصص رؤيا. Yusuf narrates a dream. That's the core. Now we can focus on the transformations. The first one is la. Now, when we say la, you isolate it like that. Now you can ask yourself, okay, what does this la bring to the table? First thing it brings to the table is that this is la. Is this la of prohibition or negation, by the way? Is it saying that Yusuf is not narrating his vision to his brothers, or is it saying Yusuf don't? Huh? What do you guys think? Yeah, you see, so that's why when you strip it down to the core and you re-add the detail one by one, you think a bit more about what it really means. Okay, so this la is not a la of negation. It's not saying that Yusuf, you're not actually doing it. La, it's a prohibition. His father is saying to him, don't do that, Yusuf. That's why la, as you can see, it could be for negation or for prohibition. So two completely different functions. We had six functions of sentences. We had affirmative statements, negative statements. And we also had command and prohibitions. Now, negation is probably very different from prohibition. Yaqub saying to Yusuf, you don't do this, is a big difference from Yaqub saying don't do this. Okay? So he said, La taqsus. Okay? Okay? Um, Now, Yusuf, let's make it anta again because it is second person. So we have to make it taqsus. أنت تقصص رؤيا, which becomes لا تقصص, don't narrate. Okay? So we have la. The la here gives us the prohibition. Then we have ru'ya. Okay, which vision? That's the question. Which dream? Is Yaqub saying to him, Yusuf, do not narrate any dreams to your brothers? Huh? La. Don't narrate your dream. Which dream? This specific dream that you've told me about, which is that you saw أحد عشر كوكبا والشمس والقمر رأيتم لي ساجدين. Because this dream has a very important meaning, has a meaning showing that يعني, if you see 11 stars and the sun and the moon prostrating to you, that means you have a very high status. That is something amazing. Don't tell your brothers. They're going to be jealous. Your dream. رؤياك. So the kaf here is a specifier. It tells us which dream. Okay. طيب. على إخوتك. Okay. لا تقصص على إخوتك. Now, is his father saying to him, do not narrate your dream to anyone? Yani you can't go and tell your mom? Again, you see, subhanAllah, all this detail is important information. La, don't narrate it to your brothers in particular. Okay? You can tell your mom, but don't tell your brothers. Why? Because the whole reason Yaqub told him not to narrate the dream is because of the fear he had for Yusuf alayhi salam that his brothers become jealous of him. That's why he said, فَيَكِيدُ لَكَ كَيْدًا, so that they don't plan against you and they don't plot against you. Okay? Out of jealousy. Okay, so ala ikhwatik is very important detail. So here we have that the core is أنت تقصص رؤيا, that's the core. Okay, we have la, prohibition. We have specification, your dream. And we have further specification, which is to your brothers. Ala ikhwatika being a specification of what? It's not a specification or a modification of ru'ya. La, it's a specification of the actual verb taqsus. Okay, as in do not narrate it to your brothers. That narration, that verb, that action of yours, which is talking about this actual dream, make sure it doesn't happen to your brothers. Yani that you don't say it to your brothers. Okay, so this extra jar majroor that tells us the place that verb should not take place, as in proximity, close proximity to your brothers. Well, I don't know about you guys, but honestly, ever since I started working on this particular framework and this particular way of breaking down sentences, I personally look at verses and analyze verses in a completely different way. And it brings to me a lot of clarity. And I say that to you as someone who already understands Arabic. So I wanted to ask you now, the way we looked at the ayah right now and we broke it down, what do you think about that? Did it allow you to understand the verse in a better way, more systematic way? Because again, this is still a simple sentence, but once we start applying this to complex ayat, it's going to make a huge difference. Because, like I said, when you go back to the core sentence and you start re-adding the detail one by one, every time you add a detail, you ask yourself a question. Okay, why this kaf, ru'yaka? Why didn't Allah say, why didn't Yaqub say, لا تقصص رؤيا على إخوتك? Oh, because it's about your dream, Yusuf. You can narrate other dreams to them. Okay, why على إخوتك in particular? Does that mean he's all right for him to tell his mom? Why did he prohibit him? Or did he prohibit him or did he negate it? Did he say that Yusuf is not narrating it? Or is he saying to Yusuf not to do it? So honestly, I promise you that we just literally started like you said, but if you follow this inshallah ta'ala in other ayat and you gain these skills, it's going to be completely different the way you look at ayat because you have specific steps that you follow. It's kind of like a systematic way of, I'm not just saying pondering over the Quran. You still need to return back to the tafsir to find out the true meanings, but it's definitely a much more systematic, easier way of processing Arabic, which probably could be applied to any language, but particularly Arabic. And we have not yet even scratched the surface. Honestly, we have not even scratched the surface, but that was just an explanation. And the reason I decided now to go to Surah to Yusuf or any surah and get some ayat from the Quran and apply it to it is to show you that I'm not cherry picking uh, sentences from Bayni Yadayk, yes, and showing you the ones that work and hiding the rest. No, this applies to the whole of the Arabic language, even to the Quran. واضح؟ نعم. Alhamdulillah. طيب, I mean, to be honest, we could continue with Surah Yusuf all day. um, but we'll, we'll suffice with that, inshallah ta'ala. Here, for example, okay, let's do this. Let's take this. يجتبيك ربك ويعلمك من تأويل الأحاديث. Okay, this is the last one we're going to do, okay? وكذلك, and thus يجتبيك ربك ويعلمك من تأويل الحديث. Of course, here we have two sentences, by the way. We have يجتبيك ربك and we have يعلمك من تأويل الأحاديث. These are two sentences. This is what we call a compound. Two compounded sentences. So we know that because of the wow. Two separate sentences. But let's break them both down. Okay? So give me the core for the first sentence and then give me the core for the second sentence. Okay? يجتبيك ربك ويعلمك من تأويل الأحاديث. Okay. الرب يجتبي أنت. Yes. Which it sounds like broken Arabic, I know. But it doesn't matter, right? الرب يجتبيك. If you want, you can keep the ka. Instead of saying أنت, this would be actually grammatically incorrect. The object is joined to the verb. You can keep it joined to the verb, it's no problem. So الرب, okay, or رب or رب يجتبيك. You add an alif lam, which you can do, but it's already going to be specified with the kaf. It's going to be specified with the kaf. So you can just say رب يجتبيك. Okay, رب يجتبيك. So now, question, which Rabb? Rabbuka, your Lord, which is Allah. Okay, so this itself, there's benefit in there. And the scholars, they mention this when they talk about the use of Rabb in the Quran. When Allah says Rabbukum and Rabbuka, in it we benefit that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us that He's our Lord. Yes. Yashtabika Rabbuk, and also the word Rabb itself, which means to nurture and to sustain. So Rabbuka Yashtabika or Yashtabika Rabbuka itself has meaning in it, which is that the one that has chosen you, He has chosen you for your benefit because He is the Rabb who nurtures and looks after His creation. Okay? Your Rabb. Okay, so Rabbuka, your Rabb, Yashtabika. And thus, your Lord chooses you, O Yusuf. Okay, and then he says, وَيُعَلِّمُكَ. Okay, now let's go to the next part. وَيُعَلِّمُكَ مِن تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ. What's the core sentence behind وَيُعَلِّمُكَ مِن تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ? Okay, it says رَبْ يُعَلِّمُ تَأْوِيلًا. نعم. Or you can say وَهُوَ, by the way. Here, we can say وَهُوَ يُعَلِّمُكَ. Okay, don't say تأويلا. That's extra information. Okay, extra, I mean that's detail. Sorry, that's detail. So the core is الرب يجتبيك, وهو ربك يجتبيك, and وهو يعلمك. These two meanings, which is that Yusuf, your Lord, has chosen you, and Yusuf, your Lord, teaches you. Now, what does Allah teach him? من تأويل الأحاديث. He teaches him what? From the knowledge of interpreting dreams. عرفت؟ من تأويل الأحاديث ويعلمك من تأويل حديث. And thus will your Lord choose you and teach you the interpretation of narratives, i.e., the events or dreams. Okay? So this min ta'wil al ahadith is what? It is an explanation or a description of the knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will teach Yusuf. يعلمك ماذا? Teaches him what? من تأويل الأحاديث. And then you have ويتم نعمته عليك. Okay, which again, وهو, he, which is Rabb. يتم will complete نعمت, his favor. He will complete his favor. He will complete a favor. Which favor? His favor. Which gives us the meaning of all favors. Upon who? Huh? عليك, upon you, O Yusuf. Yusuf alone? No. وعلى آل يعقوب. And upon the whole family of Yaqub. كما أتمها على أبويك من قبل إبراهيم وإسحاق إن ربك عليم حكيم. على أي حال, subhanallah, it's quite amazing that we came across Surah Yusuf, because Surah Yusuf, generally speaking, has more simple sentences than other surahs in the Quran. One of the surahs that are the most easy to understand for beginners in Arabic is Surah Yusuf. The language is very easy, and because it talks about his story, is much easier to understand. Okay, because it's got a story element to it, as opposed to you know, talking about rulings or the likes, which are sometimes more difficult to understand. طيب إن شاء الله we'll suffice with that. هذا والله أعلم. صلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد. بإذن الله الكريم, the portal is up. I've posted the link in the WhatsApp channel for you to join, and the first assignment is ready, which I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what the first assignment is going to be. I'm going to explain it to you quickly so that you know what to do. Okay? Okay. Sorry if you guys were still seeing Quran.com. I didn't know. طيب, let me show you right now the homework we have in store for you. The first batch of homework. There's more we're working on, of course, but this is the first batch that we have ready for you, inshallah, that you can work on. Now, the homework is related to what we've done so far, of course, and it is quite general, as in it's not specifically about a specific topic from the things we've covered so far. It is fill in the blank, okay? And this is a new, generally speaking, a new approach, or an approach that I want to follow for grammar, which I think and I hope, inshallah, is very beneficial, which is that you give the student a question, or you give him a what I call a combo, a combination of question and answer, or command and statement, or whatever. Like it's like a small part of a dialogue, a small exchange, right? And then you take out one word, and then the student fills in the blank, which should be easy. Why? Because there's enough context within the question and the answer to figure out what should be in the blank. And we're doing this because we're trying to avoid learning Arabic grammar through English. Of course, by all means, I can write you theory questions in English and tell you, ask you where is the fa'il, or what question word should we put here, or whatever, but I don't want to do that. I want you to learn Arabic in the most natural way possible. And I want you to learn Arabic by reading and writing in Arabic. So here you have only Arabic. Of course, if you have not done the vocabulary challenge before, you might not know the meanings of these words, which is one of the reasons why I'm contemplating on adding a hint button over here with the English translation. I'm contemplating on that, so that you can read the English translation if you're stuck, but you still have to write the answer in Arabic. Okay, so for example, here we have ماذا تريد لغرفة النوم. That's the question. ماذا تريد لغرفة النوم. Okay, so then you need to put the answer, which is going to be, of course, actually, instead of doing that, let me just small screen portrait. That's how it's going to look on your mobile, I suppose. Okay. ماذا تريد لغرفة النوم? You're going to write أريد. واضح؟ أريد سريرا وستارة. How do you know it's أريد? Well, you know that ماذا تريد is second person, and this is the answer. So you have to answer in the first person. So أريد سريرا وستارة. And so on and so forth. So here as well you have في أي دور الشقة الشقة في. Okay, what do we write here? Do we write الدور الخامس, or do we write دور خامس, or do we write, what do we write? That is something you should figure out. You should know. So this exercise, it relies a lot on agreement rules again. Knowing that if this is masculine, this should be masculine. If this is feminine, this should be feminine. وهكذا. Okay? أين النظارة؟ هذه هي النظارة. I don't know why it's showing up a bit weird. I think I'm going to add a space between the question and answer because it's too close to each other. I'll do that later, inshallah. But is that clear? واضح? Home. And we're going to continue doing that, inshallah, with as many sentences as we can. We're starting off right now with simple sentences, but, we'll continue, inshallah ta'ala, with more complex ones as we progress, inshallah. Okay? And these blanks, they could be anything. Sometimes the blank is the question word. Sometimes the blank is the verb. Sometimes it is the actual harf. The harf is the actual preposition. في أي دور الشقة شقة في الدور الخامس. Okay, في. You have the fi over here, but you need to figure out if it's door or not. Sometimes the blank is, 1 minute, let me see. Am I going backwards or forwards? Oh, here we go. Here, for example, we have أين تصلي الفجر. What do you say? أصلي الفجر على المسجد? Or maybe you say أصلي الفجر من المسجد. No, أصلي الفجر في المسجد. Okay? وهكذا. Is there a possibility for someone to change levels when they find their current level too difficult or easy? Yeah, just sign up for the other level. That's it. Sign up for the other level and join that. I'm not sure how you can unenroll, if that's possible. I think there should be a button to unenroll from the other levels. If not, then it doesn't matter as long as you do the assignments on the new level that you chose. Harakat is a must. Harakat, look, harakat, I'll tell you this. Either you write all of the harakat or you write none. There's nothing in between. Don't write partial harakat. So we have included both answers, which is you can either write fi without harakat, okay? Or you can write fi with harakat, as in fa kasra and then ya. The only harakat that you don't write is the sukun sign. We don't write the sukun sign. I've told you guys many times. But all the other harakat you write, including shadda. Wherever there's a shadda, even if it's shadda of shamsiyya, you have to write it. Include the shadda everywhere. So if it's ad-dawr al-khamis, for example, ad-dawr al-khamis, you write alif, lam, right? And then dal, and then with shadda first, and then fatha. Ad-dawr, for example, that was the answer. Dawri, for example. If that was the answer, ad-dawri, you'd write like that, full harakat. Or don't write harakat at all. Nothing in between. If you write some harakat here, some there, then obviously the system can't foresee that. Okay? واضح? There are no instruction exercise. No, we'll add instructions, just like the instruction I gave you now, which is fill in the blank. Either write full harakat or don't add any harakat except the sukun sign. So those are all the instructions you need to have. Okay? So inshallah that will be posted hopefully by tonight, inshallah. I just need to review it. Or latest by tomorrow morning, inshallah, if I don't manage. Probably it's 12:30 for me now. I don't think I'll get a chance to review it tonight. But inshallah tomorrow morning, Bismillah al-Kareem, I'll review it and I'll post it. And I'll continue working on more exercises for you, inshallah. طيب. بارك الله فيكم. Please like, share, subscribe, whatever. Also, please share your feedback on Book Lab or in the comments, questions, anything of the likes. Uh, Engage, inshallah, by again, like I said, commenting or liking and subscribing, forwarding it to family and friends, and keep an eye, inshallah ta'ala, on the channel. طيب. حياكم الله. بارك الله فيكم وجزاكم الله خيرا. حياكم الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.